Hey everyone, and welcome to my show. My name is Nick Elston. I'm a leading inspirational speaker, creator of unique mental health engagement strategies, a transformational speaking coach, and founder of Forging People, a community created to empower, inspire, and educate people who truly want to be heard in life and in business. On these shows, I bring you the storytellers, celebrities, speakers, influencers, entrepreneurs, those who have gone from adversity to excitement, who share their stories with vulnerability, transparency, inspiration, and most importantly, completely unfiltered. So without any further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of The Nick Elston Show. Hey everyone, a big welcome back to the Nick Elston Show. It's season 3, episode 11, day 2 of the podcast today release week. Really exciting times. So hot on the heels of yesterday's amazing session with Rachel Vecht, we have the brilliant Martyn Sloman. Big round of applause for Martyn.
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Don't be so nervous. It's fine. You know I'm not as scary as I look.
No. Well, I don't know.
Maybe. So yeah. Myself and Martyn, and actually there's another theme which I will touch on. We've had a couple of Star Wars fans on recently. So interesting, we'll carry on the theme. Anyway, myself and Martyn go way back. And we go back through our mutual membership of For Networking, business networking organization that we were both part of back in the day. And we just stayed in touch along the way. He's an amazing guy at what he does, and you'll learn more about that soon. I've referred clients to him, and he's been amazing. I've heard amazing things from clients. So without further ado, Martyn Sloman, tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from. Think of the chase, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's a very, very kind introduction. So, I actually want to say thank you because just on the point of you referring me to people, they have been phenomenal to work with as customers. So I'm glad you've got the good feedback. That's really, really good. So I'm Martyn Sloman. My business is Gold Dust Sales Training, and I'm called the non-pushy sales trainer because as much as I love everything about the 80s, it was phenomenal, and I've never let that go. The sales techniques can definitely stay there. So I will not help people who want to learn manipulative kind of mind games or coercive techniques. It's all about building relationships with people and using influence, but in a positive way and in a helpful way. So I do sales training as the business states, and so that can include things like telesales, telemarketing, teleappointment setting, face-to-face sales, negotiation skills, sales management. I do sales coaching, and then I also coach sales management and leaders effective coaching skills too, and that's a really, really nice piece because I think coaching is incredibly powerful, but it's also massively underutilized. So when you get that right, it can just blow everything wide open. So that's
amazing. And what corner of the world do you come from?
Well, I'm in North Somerset, so I'm just outside Weston-super-Mare. Grew up in Bath originally, went to the Thames Valley for my kind of early sales and sales management career, and then kind of came back this way probably about 18 years ago, something like that.
Excellent. Yeah. So the non-pushy salesman, I like that. That's really cool. I think you're quite right. As an escaped salesperson myself, I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but maybe in case I haven't, whole career in sales and account management, basic client-facing situations. Sales has got a really bad rap. It's up there, isn't it, with like tax collector and parking attendant, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that because of that overhang of traditional kind of business practice, that kind of Wolf of Wall Street kind of mentality, do you think?
I think so. And I think also people's perception of salespeople is very much formed by the unwanted calls that you get, unrecognized numbers, calls in the evening when you're having your tea and dinner and stuff. And it's the kind of calls that we want to get off the phone. So I think people who who are in sales appreciate, when it's done in the appropriate way and when you start the relationship in the right way. So, that's, and funnily enough, that's my kind of target community. But then I have to demonstrate what I do. So, it makes sense that I need to kind of lead by what I do. But I think people's negative perception is that, and it's rightly so as well, because unfortunately, there are people still who make calls that aren't helpful and, make very little effort to actually even strike up any kind of real rapport. It's all just, it's machine gun. So that's just not helpful. So I think hopefully the things will be put in place. People's tolerance, I think of it, is very little, and so hopefully those sorts of practices eventually will go away.
It's that old adage of people buy from people, that kind of relationship foundation. Does that still stand true today?
I think so. I think also that you've got to understand that people aren't going to buy from you just because they like you, or just because you've been recommended, or for whatever reason. We should never take any of that stuff for granted. We've also still got to be able to adapt to them, and not just rely on our kind of interpersonal skills. That's a huge piece, but it's also the quality of what we do and if it's the right kind of thing for them. And so I always, if I'm being recommended, I'll never take it for granted that that's a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. I need to know if I genuinely can help them, and if they're genuinely the right people for me to work with. And if they're not, then I can make another recommendation. But if they are, and this is where my sort of self-belief comes in, unless I'm proven otherwise, then I believe I'm the right person. I've got the right approach for their salespeople. So unless I'm proven otherwise, and I decide to sort of step out of it, then I believe I absolutely am the right person.
Love that. Self-belief is huge. One thing I have openly shared, as you know, is that kind of, as somebody that was former sales, client-facing account management, that, but also highly anxious, obsessive compulsive traits, all the things that, so I had the heady mix of anxiety, sales, and paranoia, but they're not exclusive to me. That accounts for a lot of people in sales, that kind of constant chase of the client, that constant fear that you're going to lose them, or that you're not good enough, imposter syndrome. So how do you maintain self-belief to keep yourself resilient and going strong?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And funnily enough, I'm working with a customer at the moment who, when it comes to prospecting, you sort of, you know what you're doing, you know your product, you can be helpful, but there are moments where the internal voice does get to you, and if you're not careful, you really do need to get yourself into a different state in order to give that potential customer, or that customer, the best chance of working with you. Often what happens there is that you might be saying the right thing, but your conviction just doesn't come across, and you do yourself a disservice. You shoot yourself in the foot, and unfortunately, it's harder work, or you may lose the opportunity altogether. So it's really, really vital. As with anything in a sales process, there is a process to this as well, which is great because you can lean on that. So probably the quickest and easiest way to do that is we have to, instead of talking ourselves out of the opportunity, we actually have to talk ourselves into the opportunity. There's a number of ways we can do that. One is we have to remind ourselves that we've actually done it. We have to remind ourselves that we can do it. We have to remind ourselves that we're good at it. And the best way to do that is to look at other people's words and read other people's words, listen to other people's words. So that turns us sort of squarely over to things like case studies and testimonials and feedback. So that stuff, my company name is this, but that stuff is actually gold dust. If you have
I see what you did there. Very good.
If you have that kind of stuff to hand, and you really, really do need that, and to keep building that kind of, if you like, those assets, and you just dip into those, you have a look at them and you just think, right, okay, I can do this. I've helped that type of business before. I've done, this kind of thing. It doesn't, if they're relevant testimonials or case studies for whoever you're going to be helping, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that. It just needs to be that you kind of need that reminder and just think, yes, I did do that. Yeah, that was the outcome. Yeah, that was the result. And actually that was better than they were expecting. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. Someone else that I know that's been a long time in sales, he's got a really cool habit. When he goes to a meeting, he's there early and he goes, any good effective person or effective salesperson would be. But he spends a few minutes with his stereo up loud in the car park, as loud as he can get away with playing the stuff that makes him feel good. So I know for you, that would be country.
Yeah. Good man.
Or even some Elvis.
Nice.
So, for me, it would be, some cheesy funk soul disco. And it's that stuff that, takes us to a different place. We just feel good as a result of that. And if you go in, with a helpful mind, knowing that you've helped other people in the past, you've got proof for it. You're expecting it to be a positive experience. You're in a positive mindset. We're far more likely to achieve a positive outcome as a result of that, and we're far more likely to be in problem-solving mode, so we can then be kind of more agile when we talk to them. So there's a whole bundle of things there.
Love that.
These testimonials, any kind of feedback, and then things that shift you into a better state. And music's a powerful way of doing that. As well as then the other thing of try to take the pressure off. Be early for things, or make sure you're there. To sort of step in at the right moment, be on time. That can be a stress. I'd say those are a few things, and also that other lesson as well, which it took me a long time to realize, which is think of the reasons why you should do it, not the reasons why you shouldn't. You've got to.
Very good.
So there we go. I hope
very powerful. No, thank you very much. That's really cool. And you're quite right. As my audience will know, I talk about this all the time. That link between that emotional connection with music is so powerful. We will come full circle back on that question right at the end of today. You've spoken at my Speaking Academy event. I'd love to get you back again. Now they're back up and running in person again. But as you know, that talking yourself into a winning game is half the battle. Public speaking in sales are kind of up there as things that generate that anxiety, that fear of rejection or failure. So we're hardwired to look for danger. We're hardwired to look for fear. We'll talk ourselves into a losing game by default. So what you're saying actually is that if we can start to talk ourselves into a winning game, we then change the outcome.
Yeah.
Love that. That's really cool. So one of the other, I work a lot in the entrepreneurial community and for networks and things when I speak at networking events. Did one this week actually for Network My Club, which is around professional sports clubs. Now, one of the common things you hear is that kind of fear of competition or anxiety around your competition, that you're fixated on seeing what everybody else is doing and what they're up to and comparing yourself to that, but also thinking that kind of, I don't know, you kind of fear that they're going to beat you to the chase every single time, or actually the other way around, that actually that because it's so visible now that people will just kind of follow you and take your clients and take your materials and take your content. How do you challenge? How do you work with people that have those kind of challenges going on?
That's a really, really good question.
Thank you. I'm not as dumb as I look.
There's a lot in that. Competition. So the way I look at that is, yes, we've got our competition, but if we think about them too much, we're looking in the wrong direction. So my piece there is just to look for how you can be helpful yourself. Look to be as curious as you can about the opportunity, and that, I think, leads to better engagement. Yes, if they are, it's natural that they may be looking at options. If it's a new prospect or a customer who needs to kind of reassess what's going on. it's natural that they are going to consider other options. And we should actually ask questions about that at the right stage in the conversation. But from the perspective of doing right by the customer, I think it's about just asking great questions, seeing how helpful you can be, looking for what's unique in their opportunity. So looking for what's unique in their requirement, their world, themselves, the people you're talking to. And if you can challenge yourself to find what that piece is, because you may be familiar with the requirement, and that's a risk, because then assumption comes in, and then we can actually kind of almost qualify ourselves out, because we're starting to treat them as everyone else, and that will come across in our approach. So my kind of rules there is just look at it as a fresh opportunity. So yeah, you might have all that experience, but you need to ask questions from the perspective of, and challenge yourself to think, okay, I know the kind of environment, I know what kind of thing this is, and it's likely to be this sort of thing, but I need to forget that for a moment. They may ask me about my experience, or that may serve me, but right now I need to know what's going on in their business, what's driving them as an individual, or as a group, or as a company, what's driving them for this, what's really behind it, what's really behind the motives, what are their real goals, and is there actually something behind that? So I get really, really curious about that. I'll always challenge a brief and want to go behind that. And I think that curiosity factor and that sincerity to help, and the desire to get right into their motives, and attach my whole approach to that, and see if I can help around that, is the thing that drives that. And I think that can levitate you above your competition. Sometimes they may want, they may look at you and they may be assessing you against some other people or other businesses, and you may have experience in the sector that they're looking at, or it may be that you haven't, and potentially the other options the competitors do, but that's not necessarily an issue. If you ask about that, you can ask them, how important is that experience? It might be that everything they've done up to that point has led them to the piece where they've had help and support and training from people who do have the direct industry experience. Actually, they're looking for another perspective. They're looking for a fresh pair of eyes, something that will challenge themselves, their sales team, to ask things differently and behave differently, and that can create better outcomes. So there's a lot in
fantastic insight. Thank you so much for sharing this. This is going to be so useful for people kind of tuned into this. I think this leads on to, I know it's a massively overused phrase, especially in networking, but that kind of unique selling point, that I think this is kind of where, personally, from my point of view, when I help kind of budding speakers and things, your personal brand, for me, truly is the biggest thing, the biggest asset you will ever have, even if it's your own business. So it's over and above. And the amount of conversations I have about, like, the beard and the cap, for example, I can never shave or never take the cap off, because it's become such a brand that, oh, you're the guy with the beard and the cap, I'll book you, the kind of thing. But personal brand is so important. I mean, we know that Elon Musk is the founder of Tesla and SpaceX. However, his personal brand far exceeds any business he owns or organizes, kind of thing. Now, if that's the case, and I think especially with more modern ways of selling through social media and that kind of thing, do you think that your personal brand is your unique selling point? Is that your key differential?
For me, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It is. I have customers who are very fortunate to have physical products, and they have specific differentiators, and there are things that are tangible, that are unique, or that are nicely developed. They are, it's easy to differentiate in that way. That's phenomenal. But for certainly for you and for me, our personal brand is our biggest asset. And the other piece as well, I'd say, to attach to that, is constantly needing to develop what you do. So in other words, looking for new ways to repurpose what we do, develop it, improve it, enhance it, and give the word is really tired out now, but give better value.
Yeah.
If we're over delivering, then usually good things will come of that. And so, I think that's investing in our personal brand, by doing that.
Yeah.
Developing more products, improving ourselves, enhancing, our content, providing more content and being consistent with that. Those things are definitely, huge for us, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think playing devil's advocate to that, though, I think you're more, should we say, I say professional sectors to prove the point kind of thing, but the last bastions of traditional business. So I see this a lot in law, in financial services, even recent conversations with, obviously, given the current situation, supply chain management is up there as one of the growth kind of sectors that I'm working in. But there are also sectors that traditionally, to show vulnerability would be a sign of weakness. And it tends to be a male-dominated industry. And it tends to be those last bastions of traditional business. I guess so. It does take some coming away from a point of fear of showing yourself in that sense, as opposed to the mask kind of syndrome. Do you experience that with your clients and people that you work with?
Yeah. Whilst you were talking through that, I'm thinking of clusters of businesses that I would work with. So there is that behaviour. I think where this can work in an individual's favour, though, is if you do show your true self, it usually works in your favour. So in other words, if you don't sound like a salesperson, then that's incredibly disarming. That's really a really positive thing. It's a great way. For whatever reason, I don't sound like a salesperson. My tone, I think my tone comes across not as salesy. So that's great when it comes to sort of talking to people on the phone and face to face. It does make a challenge for me if I'm speaking, though, because I have to work harder at being heard. And so that's something that I've learned. So I think if people can be sort of more honest, more true to themselves, and not necessarily have such a mask, if they can just approach sales opportunities, prospecting opportunities, whatever you want to call it, from the point of view of being helpful, I think that will ultimately pay dividends. But at the same time, there is we do have to adapt to the people we're communicating with, because in order for that message to be received in the right way, someone who's kind of more short and snappy, we need to get to the point. We need to show the high level detail. We need to show what's in it for them very quickly. We need to kind of give them the ROI, whatever it might be. And that's the right way for them to receive that information. So actually we should embrace that and go, do you know what? That person's really decisive. That's how they communicate. I need to be more sort of snappy. Whereas someone who's more thoughtful, more considered, the opposite is true. And in which case we need to provide more proof, allow them time to consider, the decision making, not rush the situation. Otherwise that eliminates us from being considered. We've got to be true to ourselves, but also we've got to be to our audience.
I certainly found it easier in self-employed life for the past, it's been now 5 years or so, to actually be prepared to be vulnerable. That it's kind of like, I know this may seem negative thinking, but go with me. It's kind of like being prepared to lose. And I think given that the themes that I speak about when it comes to my mental health stuff, that they can be subjective to a lot of people. It may not always land with people the way that I would hope it would. Luckily, not too often. It usually goes really well. But the point is, it's like being prepared to lose, that actually I fully appreciate the fact that by being dressed in the way that I dress, by delivering what I deliver, I am prepared to lose. I hope I win more than I lose, but it takes away the pressure. And I think sometimes that when you're starting out, certainly in self-employment or in business, or sometimes even in your career, that when you're in that position of that kind of famine period, that you're just starting out or things have gone a bit dry, you start to make like bad decisions, and then you do become that kind of pushy, kind of trying to rush things through, like skipping everything. So it is a case of sticking to the process, I guess, isn't it? Even in that position where you feel under pressure.
Yeah. I think also that it's quite a brave thing to do, in the sense that, we should be honest about what we can and can't do, and if something's not right for us to sort of step away or allow ourselves to be qualified out of it.
Yeah.
But, certainly, if I think about, talking about opportunities with customers, if I believe I can help overall, and there's a load of boxes that I can tick, then absolutely I'm 100% in for that. But if there's a few boxes that I'm less sure about, or think actually, do you know what, that's maybe not such an area of my expertise, I'll tell them, right from the get-go. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean you're eliminating yourself, because you just need to understand how important those things are to that person.
Yeah. Are you truly being heard in life, in education, in business? Your ability to deliver any message with clarity, power, and emotion will have an ultimately defining impact on your success, personally and professionally. Forging People, founded by Nick Elston, is an online community developed to empower, inspire, engage, and educate you to truly step up. Complete with online courses, early access to in-person coaching and events, free resources, and a community of like-minded people, Forging People will help you manage anxiety, boost confidence, and give you the tools to speak to any audience, whether it's one person or 1 million people. Speaking is more than just standing on stage. Speaking is business. Speaking is leadership. Speaking is influencing. Speaking is life. Contact Nick's team today on pa@nickelston.com or visit nickelston.com today to register your interest. This is the sign you've been looking for.
I have got a quick funny story about that kind of thing. If you want.
Carry on.
Yeah. So I got a brief from a customer a few years ago, and they said, "Yeah, we want you to work with our this other division within our sales organization." And I thought, great, okay, well, I'd love to. Already work with another part. Here's the brief, and it was these 5 bullet points, and 4 out of the 5 made sense to me, and then this other one was just kind of gobbledygook, and I just thought, I don't know what that is. How can I prepare for this if I don't know what it is? So I called up the person who sent me the brief, and I said, "Hey, just wanted to clarify some of this stuff before we kind of go to this meeting." And so she said, "Yeah, sure, what is it?" And I talked her through them, and she went, "Oh, don't worry about it, we'll cover it in the meeting." And I thought, that's not good. So I asked someone else who knows what they're doing in sales and said, "Hey, can you have a look at this brief and tell me what you think this 5th bullet point is?" No idea, I'll ask someone else. Everyone came back, drew a blank. So I just thought, I can't go to this meeting with this man, meet this other sales director, not knowing this other thing. I'm not going to blag the opportunity and say I can help overall. I'm just not comfortable with that. I can't make recommendations like that. So, but I kind of exhausted all avenues. So I was on the train going to this meeting thinking, what do I do about this 5th bullet point? I know I can help with the first 4. So I thought, I'm just going to put my cards on the table when we get there. So I sat down with him and the lady who arranged the brief and said, "Okay, before we get going, Hubert, I just wanted to go through these points. And if you could just tell me, please, how important is each of these things to you?" So he went, "Oh, give me it." He grabbed a bit of paper off me, ticked off the first one. "Yep, that's great." Second one, "Yep, that's great." Third one, "Yep, that's great." Fourth one, "Yep, we definitely need that." Fifth one, I haven't even got a clue what that means. He just scribbled it out and gave me a bit of fun. Though that's our brief. And I was like, thank goodness for that. Sometimes we really do just get in our own way.
Massively.
Yeah. So, don't second guess ever on that kind of stuff. Don't second guess in sales. If we don't understand something, it might be the way something's phrased that's familiar to them, but not to us. And then actually we can bridge that understanding. Or, it may not actually even be important to them. So we shouldn't be afraid to ask, these kind of almost simple questions. It's good to sometimes approach things, from a naive point of view and just, I just need help understanding this. What did you actually mean by that? What does that mean? Yeah,
I think, but it's that integrity means you excel at what you do and you carry that reputation through, which is why, we haven't seen each other properly in years. Yeah. However, again, proof testament that you stand out, and as that kind of front of mind when I wanted to bring somebody on about sales. The second thing was around Star Wars. I remember these memory hooks because you shared, the more you give of yourself, the more that I resonate with that. And that's the importance of that kind of personal brand element. Now, I think also when it comes to, and you kind of mentioned this, that if we were only meeting online and suddenly I met you in person, I would want you to be exactly the same. And there can be a lot of times that there's a disconnect. So there can be a lot of comfort behind the camera for sure. Or you see those kind of internet trolls and stuff that when you actually see them in person, they stay very, very quiet. Now, albeit I'm 6'4", 20-odd stone guy, they're going to stay quiet. But the point is, but for me, and I'm not sure what your take is on this, because I haven't always done this, but as a speaker, I go in with a neutral mindset. So I absolutely want to succeed by whatever that definition means at the time. So I never assume it's going to go well, weirdly, and I never assume it's going to go badly. I go in on a neutral level, which means that I still work bloody hard every single time that I do an event to make sure it's successful. Is that something that you can kind of resonate with, I guess? Or what would you say is the more powerful kind of way of going into a sales meeting for the sake of this show? Would it be with a positive mindset, or actually is neutral going to make you work a little harder?
Really good question. Again, so we talked a little bit about that process earlier on, which can be helpful. So that helps you to shift into the right mindset. The other piece as well is I used to shy away from processes when I was kind of a younger salesperson. I just used to think, I don't need all that, I can just think on my feet. But as I reluctantly at first embraced those things, and now I'm actually got quite a big champion of it. So I have a process for preparing before a sales meeting, and it came out of the fact of being sick of forgetting certain things. So you put the phone down or you drive away and you go, why didn't I ask that again? Why didn't I ask that? You just, So it's almost like, if you're a salesperson, you're then dreading phoning up your area manager. They go, how did the meeting go? And you go, yeah. And what about this? And you go, yeah, I forgot to ask about that. So there's always key things that we'll forget to do before a sales meeting. There's always things that will sort of sideswipe us in a meeting. We may go in with the intent of asking those things, but then we get sideswiped. So I have a very, very simple kind of meeting planner, and it's visible so they can see it. It doesn't matter that they can see it, because they're not going to think, look at him, he's really forgetful. He's been 30 years in sales, but he still has to use that. It's actually a helpful thing because it implies to them that you're organized, you're prepared, you want to try and keep things to time. So that's helpful for them because everyone is busy. So there'll be some key things on there. So things like, first of all, what are their objectives? Go back to those. Are they the right things? What are my objectives out of the meeting? So I'll still share those as well. Key questions, and they'll be unique based off their situation. So after a little bit of research, there'll be some key questions that you want to ask. Then you might ask about things like what might get in the way of the opportunity, or what might eliminate the opportunity, because that can be a reality in a business. So in other words, what might stop them from going ahead with whatever it is? What other options are they considering? What will they do if they decide not to do this? Is there something else that they might plan? And then also what happens next? So the next action bit, and the way that I ask that question is, if the conversation's gone well and the engagement's been good, and we've got some mutual things going on there, it looks like there's some momentum, then I'll ask that's a really simple question at the end, such as, when should we speak next? So that's one way of doing it, but it's something that I see a lot of salespeople forget to do, or not realize that they should do, and then that can be really unhelpful from a follow-up perspective. That can, when things start to get awkward. So that I guess comes down to a bit of planning and preparation, but not overcomplicating it. So that's a fairly simple thing, but there are some bold questions there, particularly at the end, that people might shy away from or not consider asking or forget to ask. And they're vital because that's the reality of the situation. The other bit as well is, I guess from a speaking point of view, when I do talks, I don't know if this is right or not, but I look at it from the perspective of, if one person has found one thing that I've helped, that's been helpful for them with in terms of a challenge or the way I've positioned something, I'll see that talk as a success.
Job done. Absolutely agree with you.
And I'll believe that as well. So, I'll look to kind of communicate with everyone, but at the same time, I'm conscious of the fact that, you know what, there's someone out there, and if that's helpful for them and it helps them to achieve something that they're struggling with or that they need the help with right now, that's brilliant. And so that will feel good to me, and I'm sharing that information. So it's unlikely I'll get off the stage feeling like it's not gone well, because I will have enjoyed sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, my sales career started in the late 90s. I think, as you know, but some people may not know, actually, I worked in like the office supplies industry. And back when I started, typewriters were still in the catalogue. I mean, I am that old, seriously. But it was an interesting one, especially with kind of like knowing what I know now as a 43-year-old, kind of post kind of breakdown and everything else, that mental health played such a big part in what I was about and how I acted. Looking back now, I don't think I ever, even though I was successful in my sales career by most society definitions, that I would say that I never really sold, and I spent most of my day being anxious about interactions. But if it wasn't for networking and having those kind of people relationships and just getting to know people, having conversations, I think I would not have been in sales for long, because I hated picking up the phone. I was can even now actually still have that anxiety around picking up the phone to prospects and doorstepping. But this was back in, and I'll be honest, I had a really great kind of sales upbringing from my MD, Nigel, back in the day, where it was very old school. It's like you go in, you leave a compliment slip and a business card, and then you come back and you do the follow-up, and we canvass in a 10-mile radius, nowhere outside of that. And obviously, fast forward to 2021, the world's a lot smaller now, isn't it? So how does kind of sales look in 2021, especially post-pandemic? We hope. But how does sales look now? And actually, I see very often on LinkedIn that kind of sales versus marketing, as if it's a decision. So how does that look now, selling in the modern world?
Yeah, sales versus marketing, that's an interesting one. So, I think salespeople now have to create their own brand. And I think there's some resistance to that, because they're now going, whoa, I'm not necessarily comfortable with using these platforms. I haven't got time to do that. I'm already busy. And they are, absolutely they are. They don't necessarily, so there's that piece of resistance there potentially. Then there's the bit of, what do I share? What do I broadcast? What will people think of me? So then there's the imposter syndrome that's coming in there, but at the same time, they want to succeed. So they want to know that stuff resonates. If they're just sharing marketing's message, well, everyone can do that. And, the place is just awash with it. But they if their prospects are on that platform, then they absolutely should be on it. And social selling is definitely a key part of prospecting now. And you're right, to all intents and purposes, unless those businesses aren't on that platform, then the kind of early approach that you and I adopted, I in 1992, my first ever prospecting call was prospecting trades from the Yellow Pages. With no previous sales experience.
Good old Yellow Pages.
Ever. With no sales experience. I got trained up on products, and I was like, now I can do this. When's the sales training? There isn't any sales training. Just get on the phone. What? So, that's kind of that was helpful for me because I found another pathway. I found the self-development. I got a great book from the library in Bristol in my lunch hour. So there's got to be a better way of doing this, and started to read and understand about, using a sales approach. So now social selling is part of the modern day sales approach. And I know salespeople who have embraced that and who are fantastic at it and are really consistent. But what I would say to people is, if they are reluctant about it, but your prospects are on the platform, would you want someone else to potentially be sharing the message that you could be sharing, and that you may be able to share better? There's a risk there. So would you want that to happen? You need to be visible. And it's actually helpful to be visible, because it helps them for you to stay on their radar without you being pushy. And if you're sharing content, and if it's good stuff, if it's things that you believe in and that you want to share, that you feel is helpful for someone, then it doesn't matter if you're only posting that once a month. If you're only posting it once a week, if you can post it more, then great. But it really is, I think, that the challenge now is that we do need to be visible.
Thank you, Martyn. I mean, it's really great food for thought, and it's kind of simple, really. I guess a lot of people say, "Where shall I network?" It's quite simple, really. Be where your target customers are at, kind of thing. I mean, nowadays the only networking I do is actually speaking at events. But if it's going to be something where I'm speaking to as a kind of a give back or a value or a free kind of event, then it will be at a network of contacts that are directly applicable to me. So we can incorporate that, and actually incorporating speaking into our sales process is another important factor, because you reach that key person of influence kind of model, and you do stand out above the noise. So I mean, I'm sure we can get you on for an episode 2 all about this. So you will get an invite back. But I want to get to know the man behind the business and the industry and everything else before we start to wrap up. So I know that Star Wars fan, that doesn't do it any justice at all. Way over and above. And tell us about that, but also tell us about your music life as well, because you're a musician as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to speak about those things. Thank you. So Star Wars. Well, Star Wars hit the screens when I was probably at a very, very formative age. So I'm now, I can't believe it, I'm 51 now.
Oh, you're looking good on it, mate. You're looking good on
it. I think it's because I'm a child at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. But yeah, it was there. 1977, I was 7 years old. And it just blew my mind. It's just, for a 7-year-old kid, it's just like, whoa, all the special effects, the storytelling is amazing in that film. It's the classic good versus evil, but it's the way that the message is delivered. It's that thing of hope. So it's incredibly sort of aspirational and sort of emotional, engaging for a kid. And the way the film opened as well, it's just like with the laser coming up. It's like, what more do you need, to get someone's attention? And then the cruel, the words, and then the huge, crazily huge spaceship, which kind of goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Just massive, like ridiculous opening. So it's just a beast. Star Wars is a beast, and it's good fun, and it's also polarizing. Because when I share that, I'm a Star Wars fan, when in rapport building exercise or whatever, in workshops, some of the audience are going, wow, and eyes light up. And then others are like, oh, no. And it's just like, well, okay, we won't talk about this too much, don't worry. You can apply the same for any genre of anything. Music can be polarized.
Trekkie here, sorry, I'm a Trekkie here.
Yeah. Harry Potter, whatever it might be, but we have a passion for those things because it captures us in some way, and that's the bit, that I really, really love. So, I'm now able to talk to Harry Potter fans, if they're Harry Potter fans, who are in my workshops.
Big Harry Potter fan here. You're in good company. It's like, yeah, we're all good. What about your life as a musician?
Yeah. Well, that's a painting actually behind me of that my nephew very kindly did of me for of an album cover by Level 42.
Nice.
So Level 42, I kind of grew up in the 80s, and Level 42 were a huge group in the 80s. Started off as jazz funk and then grew, had an amazing following, and then had a lot of commercial success in the late 80s. And they're still going 41 years later. In fact,
Wow.
my voice may be a bit croaky because 2 nights ago I was shouting my head off, screaming for joy at watching them at the Hexagon in Reading. And they're an
Oh,
amazing
cool.
band, seven-piece live band.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're just loving it on stage. They're great fun. And that's great because they keep doing it, and they keep, they play the material, but they've got such a huge raft of material, probably about 10 albums worth. So they're not short of putting together a great set list. And so, yeah, Mark King, who's the bass player, famous for doing all the fun work, so he plays bass in a really, really percussive way, and that kind of captured my interest when I was younger. I didn't have the inclination to play when I was younger, but I took it up in my early 30s. And at first I learned in the bedroom. I learned watching YouTube videos and that kind of thing, and I tried to teach myself best as I could, but I was conscious that I wasn't kind of progressing so well. So eventually I got lessons. I was taught by a few really great teachers, and I braved going to a jam night one day because I just thought, how long am I going to be a bedroom player? Why am I doing this? I need to, it'd be great to play with some other people and see what that's like. And so I went to this jam night in a bar in Weston-super-Mare, went along with my bass, and I wanted to play sort of funky stuff. So I thought I'd learned Superstition by Stevie Wonder, and play that funky music, White Boy by Wild Cherry. And I just thought, I'll go along there and I'll ask if they can play that. And so I went along there, and they said, oh, you'll have to wait for the guy who can sing that. And I was like, okay, fine. So we wait for the guy who can sing that, who eventually comes in, and I jump up on stage, and I was awful. All of a sudden, there's lights everywhere. You can't see anything in front of you. It's like a huge out-of-body experience. In a film when there's a massive explosion, you're right next to it, and that everything's disorientating, and it's just like, all you can hear is just white noise. And you can't, it's like your senses don't belong to you. I hear this noise behind me, which I realized was the drummer, and then all of a sudden, we've got to come in, and I don't even know when to come in. I'd learned these songs, but I just could not play. And when, at the end of the song, the lights went up into the audience, and no one said anything. They just looked like this. And I just grabbed my bass, stuck it in the case, and I just scurried off back to the bar and just sat there and thought, I can't leg it. I've just got to sit at the bar. What was that? And try and kind of take stock of what happened. And I was just so awful. I didn't even get polite applause. Unbelievable. And so I sat in the bar, and this guy came up to me and he goes, so you want to play bass? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, if I thought about lessons? And I went, yeah, probably be a good idea, wouldn't it? So he hooked me up with a great bass teacher, coincidentally, who was also a massive Level 42 fan, and he could also drum and he could also sing. So he's one of those multi-instrumentalists. And we started playing together. We started doing lessons, and because he's a drummer, it was the perfect teacher, because bass is part of the rhythm section in music, and it's vital. So you've got to have a great sense of timing. By the way, there's a joke there. Have you ever heard the one about the bass player who was so despondent with his bad sense of timing, he threw himself behind a train?
Very good. Very good. Like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I gradually I improved, just
good man.
Learned like a demon, played virtually every night, practiced every night, just wanted to get better and better and better. And so eventually got to the point where I could play in bands. So I've been in a few bands, and now I'm in the band I've ultimately ever wanted to be with. I didn't know it was this. I didn't know the lineup. Obviously, I didn't know this band existed, but it was the kind of band I wanted to be in.
Brilliant.
So Motown funk band, and we're called Honky Tonks, the Honky Tonks band. So it's great. We've got 2 sax players, keys player, guitarist, lead vocals, me on bass, and a drummer. And because of the 2 brass, we can play stuff that maybe other bands, other lineups can't do.
Great stuff. Thank you.
An amazing noise.
Amazing. Yeah. So penultimate question. Where's Bendy Man nowadays?
Bendy Man. Do you know what?
Those who know.
So the Bendy Man is one of those yellow Bendy Mans. I've got one upstairs. So he's a Bendy Man, and I play a feedback game, a very, very powerful feedback game, which I can do at talks, and also I use where relevant in training sessions. So it's a training toy. I think because of the pandemic, I need to reassess how that's used. So he needs to go through some kind of sterilizing process. I think I need to use a different Bendy Man for every single bit of that game.
COVID protocol for Bendy Man.
Bendy Man is never going to go. That's an incredible
it really is
team building, feedback, communication game. It's so simple and hard hitting, and also it's a safe game as well. No one can feel offended by it. No one can be embarrassed by it. It gets the message. It just is. It's crazily powerful, really.
It is. I've seen you deliver it twice now. Once to a networking environment, once in my speaking academy. Powerful both times. Look, the question I want to finish on is this one. I am now the MC of the O2 Arena in London. 20,000 people have paid our hard-earned money to come and hear you do your thing. And Bendy Man, of course. You're in the green room, you're kicking back, you're backstage, and your walk-on music kicks in. That song that motivates you, that lifts you, that gets you at peak state, that you stroll onto and you perform. What would your song be, Martyn Sloman?
It would have to be Good Times by Chic.
Very good. Nice. Yeah. So this track, along with every other choice from our guests on season 3, will be available on a playlist at the end of the season. So thank you very much for that. Martyn Sloman, big round of applause.
Thank you very much.
It's amazing to have you on the show. Yeah. Really enjoyed that conversation. Thank you. So for everybody else, please stay tuned. Tomorrow we have Martin Preston, another really interesting guy, heavily involved professional sport and into the world of management as well. So he's going to be shining a light on his industry and likes and stuff. So please stay tuned. In the meantime, be well, take care, and stay happy. See you soon, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye. And that's a wrap. A big thank you for tuning into today's episode. Please do leave us a like and hit subscribe for the fantastic upcoming episodes that I will be bringing to you, featuring more amazing guests. But for now, be well, be happy, be safe, and remember, as I always say, it's what you do next that counts. Until next time on the Nick Elston Show, take care. I'll see you soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.